We got kicked, but we're back up and running. It's True Exposure live on Spotlight 39, and we got a super special guest. So let's get into it. Mike, check. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you. I can see you.
All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and tell the world who you are, what you do. Let's do that intro one more time, man, for the folks that missed it.
No, no problem. That's the beauty of enjoying what you do. You don't mind saying it multiple times. Well, I'm Dr. Travis Batts. I'm a cardiologist based out of San Antonio, Texas. I work with both track and football, 7 on 7, and I just enjoy what I do. My focus is what I like to call lifestyle medicine, meaning focus on the whole body, and so that means I can help both the young, middle aged, and the old in that space.
Okay. So obviously, right, we're fully branded here with Championship 7v7 True Exposure Live. Shout out to Zenith for the sponsorship, for the circuit. So let's start there, right? Let's start with 7-on-7 football and just football in general. And let's talk about, you know, what program you're familiar with, or you coach or you're a part of, and let's talk about them. Let's talk about maybe some of the kids that come to mind, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to give them the exposure, and then we want to talk about how we can help these kids today, tomorrow, and in the future, with how to treat their body, right? How rest is important, and then talk about some health benefits, but then really dig deep into the whole heart disease within student athlete piece, and talk about the reason why 39 Hearts, the nonprofit, is a thing. So let's start with the football side, man. With what organization are you a part of?
So I'm one of the coaches for the 210 Rough Riders. Again, our head coach, Ernie Flores, has been in this game for what 25 years. His father, he told me yesterday, has been in it for 40. It's just a true love for really growing young men and in the context of football. When I look at our team, now that said, we're a 15U team. A lot of our guys are young, which is commonplace, but really I like to see that development. And from last year when we started to now, I mean, we've picked up in terms of numbers, we've picked up in terms of expertise. I mean, our coaching staff is, again, I'm gonna brag, of course, because I'm on it, second to none. We have a, former NFL player. We have some guys, of course, that played, some college, some semi-pro, and so it really helps with the understanding when I think of players coming out. And interestingly, many of these athletes are former track athletes that I had the chance to interact with on a track team that I'm affiliated with, Columbia Track Club. But he's a class of 2025. Peyton Matthews, again, one of the fastest set of feet in Texas. But this is a kid, again, class of 2025, 6 foot, 170 pounds, player that can play both sides of the ball, and just a great kid. I mean, all the kids when I asked them to send me what they want to say, the first thing this young man said was his GPA, right? And so that
That's
that
it.
says something about his character. Yeah, he said 4.0, coach. Just make sure you get that out there first.
Look, man, I could have all
Also,
the talent in the world, but if I got a
he's long.
2.3, man, I ain't playing no ball, right?
There you go. And the thing is, helping kids to understand that is big. So again, when we go to our next set of guys, again, it's that 2026 class. Again, all up and coming guys. Again, I'm a track guy. So speed, speed, speed. So we have again our quarterback, Kaden Glass, probably one of the most decorated of that group. He's about a 5'7", 5'8". Based on his metrics, he'll probably get to about 5'10", but a true dual threat quarterback, metrics are off the charts. Football IQ is crazy. I mean, and this is somebody, I think he got invited to kind of a couple of the most prestigious camps, and he basically held his own. When we look at some of the other kids, some of our outside threats receivers, we got a Makai Thompson. Again, if that name sounds familiar, it's because comes from a long lineage of kind of football guys. Brother, big star out at Texas, then went on to the NFL, and again, he's following right into his footsteps. Diego Flores, again, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but this is a kid that really has a true, and again, excuse the pun, heart for football. Just loves the game, and understands. I mean, when I'm talking understanding coverages, I'll throw something out there, and I know they haven't seen it. Man, you give this kid a little bit of time, he'll navigate. Again, when we look at, go down that list of kids, again, I'm out there. I'm also a dad coach. My son is out there. He's a bit more cerebral. He's kind of that linebacker that's trying to, again, play in space, true speed, really understands. But this is where we get to challenge the kids and really work with them as we go down the list. Again, we've got some older kids. We got a young man, Donovan. Again, his last name escapes me, but I think you all actually got some film on him, and I'm gonna ping it. There's a catch where he goes up with one hand. The guy is down by his waist. He makes the catch, lands down. I mean, it's just I'm thinking about it, and I'm wishing I could do it, but I'm a little out. It's a little outside of my scope there.
There you
But
go.
again, the team's true focus is really helping grow these young men. And again, like I told you, it comes from the spirit of coach. I mean, I know that he coaches another team across town, drives across. I don't know if you've been to San Antonio.
Not
It's a
yet.
big city with the. Come on down. It's about 100-mile loop around, and his coach, our head coach, makes this drive cross town and back, really to focus on the boys on our side of the city, which we stay on the northwest side, and it drives again over to the southwest side, to the south side, and really makes it happen across the city.
Yeah, man. So those are just some of the kids, right?
Right. Some of the kids. I mean, if you, hey, you let's go. We can let me go ahead and pull up the list. So, as I mentioned, I talked about Kaden Glass. Again, we have. Come on, phone. There we go. All right. We have again, young man, Tolfrey. Again, that name again in Texas. He's a 6'1", 210, 215.
Okay.
Plays a little quarterback for us. Plays receiver. Really kind of that tight end. You know how tight ends now are getting a little more swaggy. He's in that space.
Look,
Just
you want to talk
really
about a swaggy
again.
tight end? That's
Okay,
cue for
okay,
me. That's cue for me, right? I gotta shout
it
out my
is.
man
Yeah,
Big Dave, Big
let's
Dave.
go.
And I'm gonna butcher the last name, right? Ugamalay. I
Mm,
think his son. We all know him, quarterback at
yep,
Clemson, right? But his
yes,
other
sir.
son is that swaggy swag tight end
Ooh,
slash 5-star edge rusher, Mateo.
mm,
St. John
mm.
Bosco, man. Shout out to those guys. I put it out there last night. I'm coming back to California. I'm excited. I get
Got
to
it.
see Bosco. I get to see Modern Day. I get to see all those dudes, and they get to play the top two teams in Hawaii in California, man. So September 16th, 17th, press release came out yesterday. Spotlight39, Rob Odie. I'm back, man. I'm excited. So look, you want to talk about a swaggy tight end? That's that guy. But let's get back on topic. Let's
Okay.
talk about your kids, man.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that because that again, I tell my kids, look at that person at the next level. Look at that person ahead of you and emulate a lot of those behaviors, those attitudes, what their off the field play is. How are they on the sideline? And that's really what you want to see. Again, as we go down this list, like I say, we don't have a huge squad, but we got a lot of, like I said, kids coming up. There's a kid again, and I want to say his nickname so he'll know who I am. But I call him J Rock.
There he is.
Jamari. And the thing is, this young man, sometimes we got to dial him back, right? He plays again, kind of our running backs, flex into a slot. He also can swing and play a little strong safety. We put and again we mix up defenses, of course. Cover two. We'll play a little man. We'll play a cover two man under. We'll do some different things. This kid, I gotta say, hey. You give him chance to play that coverage. He won't let people off the line. Really, what we call a jam specialist. He likes to make what's called a jam sandwich. He takes people, jams into the ground, and he eats. That's
There
what
it
we talk
is.
about. So again, when we run through that list, again, we got another young man. I call him Fleet Feet. And again, I'm pulling at my phone it's how it always works out, Jeremiah, right? And so again, when you talk about just understanding the game, really watching. Now again, he'll play, a little. I say he plays a little off early on to see, and then what he does is it's almost like he weaves this web and just kind of builds it. Then before you know it, he's gone on that nice go route. So again, like I say, we got a young squad, and I hope as our relationship continues to have that metrics and everything. Like I said, all these boys are in a part of a club that's outside of football that I call the forwards, the 4.0s. And so every quarter, we do something special for the boys, take them out, and we do something for the guys that made all straight A's. So that's really what it's about moving
Look,
forward.
that's big time. So look, I'm gonna do this. So shout out to my guy RL, right? Part of the media squad. This is my public service announcement for the show to you and any of your guys, right? So any of your kids or any student athlete out there, If you want to share your story, you want a one-on-one conversation with myself to share your story, to talk about who you are on and off the field and in the classroom, because that's equally, if not more important than any time that you might, present on the football field, man. So if you want that, reach out to me. I'm super easy to find. Hit me on any social media platform, and we'll set that up. We'll get you on the live show. You'll share your story. I can play your huddle film. We can play your workout film. We can talk about your dogs, cousins, aunts, uncles. I don't care. We want to share your story. Everybody's got a story to share, and I think everybody's story can impact somebody in a positive way. So that's my public service announcement. Open invite to anybody who wants to share their story. So what do we
Perfect.
got?
Perfect.
We got some more kids. Are we ready to get into the meat and potatoes, man?
We ready to get into the meat and potatoes. You know me. I'm at the end of the day, I'm still a cardiologist, so I'm itching to. And like I say, when I read about the things that you all are doing at 39 Heart, um, man, it moved me. It moved me to a sense where I didn't want to give too much data because I said I don't want to put all of it out just yet. But hopefully you'll have me back and we can kind of chop it up on some of those other things. But it really moved me to see the works that you all do. The video where you all were at the school and how you involve the community. And I mean, and that's really what this is about, and I'm just excited to do that. But if I can, like I say, I do have to mention, I know this is a football show, but all of you footballers that are out there, make sure you're doing your off-season stuff. Give your body some time to transition. It's okay to step onto a track every now and then. And again, a lot of actually our track team, the Columbia Track Club, headed by again the Richardsons, both Marlon and Tracy, and the Randolphs, Deborah and Terry. That's actually was a pipeline for an older football program in San Antonio. And then before we knew it, we ended up with 200 kids on the track. We have some Olympians, we have engineers, we got physicians, we got a little bit of everybody. So I make that plug to say, let's play football, but understand that football is about making that body a whole unit, right? So there we go. So that's the track plug. 'Cause remember, I'm a football lover, but I'm a track guy, right? Track is that foundation. So
So let's do this, man. I'm gonna bring you up solo, so they're gonna see you. They can hear me. Um,
perfect,
we're gonna walk through the graphics, man. I wanna. We got a lot of content, and I'm just kind of gonna bring it up in order, right? So you set the stage, man. Kind of just talk about what you sent me, right? So what are some of the things that we're gonna be looking at as I pull up this first graphic right here?
perfect.
So
So
first graphic, leading causes of death, right? This is I'm gonna leave this here while you kind of set the stage for what else we're gonna be talking about.
right, and thanks, Rob. And I like to start here, right, because remember, I'm an adult cardiologist, right? And so we always think, as whether we're young, even when we get to, and I'm still young, but even when we get to my age, that heart disease is something that's far off. And unfortunately, what we find out is that time where we find our risk becomes earlier, earlier, and earlier. And no matter what, if you add up the leading causes of death, and this is US 6, but go worldwide, again, heart disease, vascular disease outpace every other condition you could think of. But I think in youth, the biggest thing that we have is we have this sense of kind of invincibility. And our discussion today will highlight that. And Rob, if you could pull up that next graphic, it'll kind of show us where we are. So this is actually the causes of death for high school and college age Americans. And Rob had mentioned, he said, Doc, I looked at this and I didn't realize that every year, 76, at least 76, we know of people die, young people die of heart related issues, right? In athletics. Now, why is this important? Because sometimes when those individuals come in, it doesn't get characterized, but we think this number is probably higher, right? Of course, car accidents and various other things, but heart disease in the young is a real thing, especially when we look at athletes, right? Because what we're doing, we're taking a body that normally is in an air conditioned controlled environment, and we're putting them in stress. When I watch them those highlight videos, I get hyped, right? But I know that it's warm out there. That you all were just in Mississippi, down in Texas, whether you in Georgia, you got the heat as an element you have to battle. You have, kind of the environment of what you're putting in your body, those type things, and all those things contribute. We can go to the next graphic, Rob. And so when we think about all those causes, this is a breakdown of probably the largest groups of young people, right? Of course, we have what we call a general US registry. So this is folks that put data in and say, hey, look, this is what we're reporting from our hospital. You have the United Kingdom, right? And the big thing there is soccer. So they're following a lot of soccer guys, but still taking all comers. And we're looking at that. And then we have the military. And again, I didn't mention I am in the military. I have the privilege of working with what we call our tactical athletes, right? Kind of those guys that keep us safe, guys and gals that keep us safe. But then we have the NC2A. And the one thing that you see that holds true is much as we want to know what the condition is, unfortunately, what we call SUD or sudden unexplained death is probably the leading cause in most of these cases. We'll talk about how you think about it and how you break it down coming up. But I think just to get everybody involved in this space, uh, Rob, let's go to that video that moved you. If now would be a good time to show that.
A high school volleyball game is underway outside Atlanta. The play is intense but friendly. Then a moment of utter horror. A senior suddenly collapses. You can actually hear the thud as she hits the hardwood floor. She lies there, lifeless, as everyone runs to her side. The teen is in full cardiac arrest. One coach performs CPR, but it's not working. It's looking grim for 17-year-old Claire Crawford. Then somebody rushes in with a defibrillator. There it is. It's in the black box. Sure enough, you can see Claire's body jolt from the electric charge. Julie Sermons is the quick-thinking school administrator who used the defibrillator.
Life started to come back in her, and it was wonderful to see.
And this is Claire today. It's a miracle. Claire says she was feeling fine during the volleyball play. Just seconds before she passed out, the ball came her way and she gives it a good whack. But then something goes wrong. She's in distress and clutches her heart, then collapses. Can you tell us what your symptoms were?
I had pain down my left arm and my heart felt like it was working really hard, but I just assumed I was out of shape.
Claire's mom, Lisa, was in the stands watching the volleyball game.
We were just desperately praying. It was 4.5 minutes. I mean, it was a long time to watch them doing compressions, and definitely we thought we'd lost her.
Here's a defibrillator similar to the one that saved Claire's life.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
So it tells you everything. Yes.
Do not touch the patient.
Step by step, it will tell you exactly what to do. If it says stand clear, don't touch.
This is one teen who is truly lucky to be alive. Claire, how are you feeling now?
Feel good, better than before.
So again, as you all could see, that was, again, me filming that on my phone because I think it really tells the story of kind of how the parent felt, how the child felt. And the biggest thing that she said was, I just thought I was out of shape. And for many youth and even coaches, that's what we think. We can show the next graphic, Rob. And so the heart, and again, I'm going to say this, and you all may laugh or chuckle, is probably the simplest organ to manage. Trust me, right? The heart can only goes wrong in three areas, right? So you have the heart structure or the muscle. You have the heart, the electrical system, right? The heart has its own built-in electrical system. And then you have essentially the plumbing or the arteries that go to the heart. When we look at the vascular system as a whole, blood vessels go throughout the body. So if you have a problem with an artery, again, which we see as the kind of genesis of this program was an aortic dissection, or other things that can go on. Those are the things that we talk about. So, and when we think about it, we think about it in those ways. Now, this isn't something that the athlete has done wrong. In many cases, they're born with a lot of these causes that contribute. Now, you say, well, why is exercise the issue? If we go to the next graphic, we can talk about how exercise, interestingly, has what we call a bimodal, which means two distribution, right? So we know that up to a certain point, exercise is beneficial. But when you put your body in undue stress in environments that, in South Texas, sometimes we have 100 days of 100-degree weather. And if you don't hydrate and if you don't do those things, again, your risk goes up during that time. This is especially true for, let's say you're doing two-a-days and you don't do what you need to do when you get that break in between and you go back out there. Or let's say, you said, let me grab this, energy drink, or let me, take this, supplement so I can, and I'm not saying anything. I think that they're great, but again, in the context of that, making sure you're, drinking water and doing the things that you need to do for that. So the NC2A recognized that things needed to take place and structures needed to be in place to ensure that this happened. So I'm a member of the Sports Cardiology Council for the American College of Cardiology. My mentor, Dr. Dick Kovacs, actually is the physician or one of the physicians that governs what goes on at the combine. And so if we show the next graphic, we can kind of see where the NC2A said, hey, look, we need a governing body to structure how we approach the care, or at least the cardiovascular care of college student athletes. And this same structure can be shifted to high school athletes and different things like that, almost a tool for coaches. So, one of the key things is understanding or taking what we call a history. And a history is just when you go into the doctor and they're asking you those questions, that's where you tell them what's going on. This isn't the time to kind of hold back and not say anything and not do anything. Next graphic, please, Rob. This is the time to really let it out there. Now, I usually tell folks that there are three ways you can be, right? You can be asymptomatic. A means without, meaning you don't have any symptoms, right? You can have symptoms of passing out, dizziness. There's a case, and actually, this was a father that reached out to me, actually, our coach, who had talked about his son, right? And his son plays on our team. And one day he just, kind of was a little dizzy. This was very when he was a younger child and passed out. And again, it happens, but they didn't think much of it. But what they did, they went that next step about history, right? They basically did what's called a family history. And remember, I told you that these aren't things that you've done to yourself. These are things that you're often born with and can be genetic. And when they did an extensive family history, they saw that his mother had events and that throughout his family, they had these events of passing out. So they went that next level. And initially, he was told, you can't play sports anymore. But due to his love for not only his family and his son, he wanted to get more answers. And so they went to probably one of the premier places in this country, the Mayo Clinic, and told their story. And at that point, they did something that now we're starting to shift to do. They did genetic testing. Now, genetic testing isn't something that you do for every cardiac condition. Remember, I told you it can be either a muscle problem, a blood flow problem, or an electrical problem. And so sometimes with the electrical problems, you can identify the specific type. And in this case, the young man had a condition called long QT syndrome, meaning that your heart has its own electrical signature and certain parts should be a certain time, a certain distance, and others should be, a bit longer. But this was too long, and what it did is it increased that person's risk for having abnormal heart rhythms, similar to the one that we saw in the young lady. Next slide, please, Rob. And so now when we look at, I know you're wondering, well, Dr. Betts, what types of things do we need to test or should we get testing? Well, again, it starts with giving an accurate history. And so if you don't know, ask family members. Some of the questions, have we had anyone, and it's going to be a little nerve wracking, die prematurely? Prematurely means at less than 40 of an unknown cause. Anyone die in a, just, out of the blue without an accident? Do we have a history of early heart disease, right? Do you have folks having heart attacks in their 20s and 30s? And it happens. Do we have anyone in our family that has what we call congenital or genetic heart disease? And so those are the questions that you want to ask. Now, as for tests, now I know there's a lot of new things coming on the market. Um, some of them, I know the American College of Cardiology is working to ensure that there's standardization. But at the baseline, what's called an EKG, and that's an electrocardiogram. It tells us the electrical signature of the heart and gives us an idea of what normal is. Now, I say what normal is, but I use that tongue in cheek because we really don't have good data on normal EKG measurements for young people, or better yet, athletes, because there are some changes to the heart that we call exercise induced cardiac remodeling. A lot of big words. All it means is that when your body trains or when you exercise, your heart shifts into different ways. Some of the other tests are electrocardiogram. And again, I have a machine that I carry with me. I can plug it into my iPhone and I actually can see pictures of your heart, right? That's what I use when I'm walking around seeing patients. And then other studies that are more advanced, what we call advanced cardiac imaging, are MRIs and CT scans and various things like that. Next slide, please. So again, this talks about, and the reason why I wanted this one to pop up is because it talks about those family history points that we discussed, right? Premature death, disability from heart disease at less than 50. Some of the things you'll hear about are hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, means that the heart is too thick. You'll hear about, arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. And again, when you hear cardiomyopathy, cardio means heart. Myo means muscle, opathy means disease, so disease of the heart muscle, and it can occur from multiple different things. Now, when we go to the next image, next slide, please, we'll see that again, this is where we talk about some of those personal history facts. And the reason why I'm bringing these back up, if you have chest pain, if you pass out, if you get dizzy from an unknown cause, if you feel extra heartbeats or palpitations, it doesn't mean you're done from sports. It means that you need to let your parents know, let your coaches know, because these are things that could be some of the early findings of more significant conditions. Next slide, please. So when we think about how we want to approach heart disease or manage heart disease, it is a team-based approach, right? And it starts with the athlete. That's right. It starts with you, right? Because that relationship that you have with your coach or with other athletes, sometimes one of the key people to let us know that something's going on isn't the person having the symptoms, it's their buddy. It's that offensive lineman that looks over and sees that, the tight end is dragging a little bit more, or it's that quarterback that looks and sees the running back swing back and forth. It's basically being a great teammate, or as we say in the military, being a great wingman, right? Making sure that they're okay. The next piece of that is, again, sports medicine or even your primary care doctor, because there's a lot of things that they can do to get the ball rolling, meaning an EKG if it's indicated or if you need it, or looking at blood work to see if there's any abnormalities in your electrolytes. That's your potassium, your sodium, your calcium, those type things. And then finally, I say finally, not because we're at the back end, but oftentimes we want those screening steps to take place, is when you come see the sports cardiologist or your cardiologist. And that's where I come in, right? Because after you've identified it on the field or the coaches had some concerns and you've seen your primary care doctor and you come see me, that's when we do those more advanced tests and ultimately, hopefully, find out what's going on and institute therapies to fix it. Now, the system isn't off the hook, right? Whether you're in a high school system, a middle school system, and definitely a college and professional system, what we can look at is this next slide where it talks about the chain of survival, right? We need to understand that sudden cardiac death, although we don't hear about it a ton, is probably more to the forefront than we think about, right? And the true incidence, meaning how frequently it occurs, is not as easy to articulate as we would like. But understanding that having a quick response or a regional approach to it, meaning when you're on the field, right? When you go out to play football as a coach, you should know where the nearest AED or defibrillator device is, because you never know what can happen, right? And it might not be a bad investment to keep one in your truck, right, or your car, right? So again, now I'm a cardiologist, so it's a little easier for me to say that. But any league that really wants to expand the role of sports, particularly football, where we're kind of out there sweating, where we can have contact, we can have this, need to have, again, an idea or an action plan, as we say, as to what should occur, right? Understanding that relationship between emergency medical services as well is going to be important. And then the last part, again, goes back to the teams, the coaches, and the environment to ensure that everyone is up to speed in terms of learning how to navigate that space in a way that helps individuals get better, right? And that's having basic CPR and basic strategies to improve where you go in terms of that. Let me see. I think there was uh, one more slide, right? I think that'll be it. And so again, this is a nice state of the art paper, and I already mentioned my mentor there, Dr. Kovacs. And again, we talk frequently about what's new and on the horizon. And what I can tell you, I can't give too much away, but understanding that there are a lot of new what we call wearables on the market, where you can, have a watch of some sort or have some device tell you what is abnormal or what's not doing what we need to do. When we look at those devices, make sure that you do it in the right context if you're going to do that, right? So I recommend if you're thinking of, well, let's use this as a tool, let's use that as a tool, engage with your primary care doctor. Make sure that you have an awareness, talk about that clinical history, and push forward to understand that these are the steps that you need to take before you have that issue. All right, Rob, we can think, open it up to questions, or we can chat and talk about some specific conditions. But that's it for the graphics. Do
Yeah,
you want me to
man.
go through?
Well, I was gonna say
Go ahead.
we had a couple more. I wasn't sure if you wanted to speak to them. We
Yeah.
got this guy and we got this guy.
All right, so yeah, so this is my plug to make everybody want to be a cardiologist, right? Because it's probably it is the coolest specialty, right? So I always ask people, with cardiology, you can do three things, right? You can play video games, watch TV, and talk to people. Because when you're reading the studies, you won't believe me, but it's almost like a video game, right? When you're going through and you're opening up a space that's probably as big as I guess half of a penny, and you're doing surgery on the heart, that's probably one of the coolest things. But understanding cardiac physiology, I think, is important. So the heart essentially is a muscle, right? And we know that. And it's a pump. Remember, I told you it has its own blood supply, it has its own electrical system. And what happens is the heart pumps blood that has oxygen and nutrients around the body. Now, when it goes around the body, it drops off those oxygens and nutrients, comes back to the heart where it's what's called deoxygenated, then it flows into the lungs. Once it goes into the lungs, guess what it does? It picks back up oxygen and nutrients, goes to the left side of the heart, and then back out to the body. The heart has four chambers, two on the right side, two on the left side. Those chambers are separated by heart valves. And the reason why I say this is that if you go in and they say, hey, I hear something with your heart, it could be a valve issue, it could be a chamber issue. But ultimately, knowing those basics about heart disease, about a normal heart, will help you understand when it is abnormal, the things that the physician and other folks are looking for.
Good deal. So let's bring it back. If I got the right screen, there we are. There we are. So let me just get a mic check. You can hear me, correct?
I can hear you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, man, I mean, I had to mute my mic because I was in school, man. That was absolutely a fantastic presentation. I think you dug very deep into a lot of great topics, and like I said off air, man. Honestly, you are the exact person that I've been, looking forward to connecting with, and just so happened, here we are tonight on this platform, getting to share some knowledge to more importantly raise awareness for heart disease within student athletes. The reason behind 39 Hearts, man. So that was great. That was great. So let's tie that in to football specifically, right? Let's talk about practice at high school or Pop Warner or college or even NFL, right? Because I got a couple of guys that I'm linked to that are now in the league, right? So when we're thinking about that, and these guys are going hard, what are some things that they may want to keep in the back of their mind, not to be in panic mode or freak out mode, right, or cause additional anxiety, because we got enough of that with the world happening around us. But what are some things that they may want to keep in the back of their mind?
That's again, and you hit the nail on the head, Rob, when you said, don't go in panic mode. Not to say you take it lightly, but ultimately it's about knowing yourself, right? Whenever we hear stories of people having events or issues, it's usually they've had something occur at some point in time previously. Whether it was just some illness or they stood up and almost passed out. Like I'll hear those stories before we have the bigger event. Now, that doesn't mean I'm out of practice, I'm done. That means, hey, go get it checked out. And simple things you can do. One thing that we do again, both in football and track, is we do a quick. Now, this doesn't, but it's a quick hydration check. So if you squeeze the back of, typically your middle finger, and your, skin stays what we call tinted, or you look at your urine, I'll just go ahead and say it. That will give you some idea of where you are from a hydration standpoint. And one of the key triggers for, remember, I told you you can have a rhythm problem, a structural problem, or a blood flow problem. But one of the key triggers for a rhythm problem, I know you know the answer, Rob, is going to be electrolytes out of whack. Hence the reason why in the 1970s and 80s, the University of Florida said, "Hey, we're gonna make Gatorade to give back some of those nutrients that get sweated out." Right, and I think that's where people kind of get mixed up. Now I'm going to throw another one in. I'm not going to say any names, but when you think about what's in energy drinks, and I know you got something. I won't say names because I you may pick them up as a sponsor at one point in time, but energy drinks, the downside is that well, I'm getting good caffeine. Well, nothing's wrong with caffeine, but now let me set the stage. Dehydrated, your electrolytes are out, and now you take something that gets quickly into your bloodstream that its primary goal is to speed up your heart rate. You add the stress of football, the heat. What you've done is created the perfect environment to have another one of those electrical abnormalities occur. Right. And so this isn't me bashing. Now, granted, if you, uh, I've done research on kind of the risk to young adults, and we know there's a few things that can do that. So physical inactivity is one, right? So, if you haven't trained all summer, hopping right back into two a day might be a bit advantageous, right? So do some work before you get back there. Number two, if you vape or use any tobacco product, again, what you're doing is you're putting toxins in your body that might have a negative effect on your performance, whether that be from an oxygenation standpoint. Remember that blood's got to flow through the lungs before you pick it up. Okay, that's something that you probably need to put away. And then finally, again, energy drinks. We know that you can look at the rates of arrhythmia, that's abnormal heart rhythm, or sudden death over time. And I'm not saying it's an exact correlation. When you look at the amount of energy drinks that have come out, those rates have often gone up by a factor of two or threefold. So something to think about, something to throw, but that's usually where I start, right? Just take a good look and really do a good self inventory as you're getting to go back into that training space. I know that was a long answer,
Hey,
but that at least gives us a stage, sets the stage for us.
I like long answers. Long answers are good answers, man. That's the detail that we need, right? We need to really raise awareness and be more mindful of the fact that we lose 76 plus young athletes every single year from causes that they probably had no idea existed prior to their death. You
Right.
could be, as healthy as an ox, right? You could be as fast as lightning. You could lift as much weight as you want, but you may not know that you've got something going on internally. And that goes back to, what you were just saying, know yourself, right? You've got to understand your body. You've got to know, what your limits are and how you normally feel compared to how you're feeling now. Because, how you normally feel, and then you go out there and you just bust out, the first leg of a two a days, then you feel some kind of way, right? Is that the normal? Man, that's a good sore, or man, like something don't
Right.
feel right. Because if something don't feel right, you gotta bring attention to it, right? And like you
Yeah.
said, it's not saying, hey, your football days are over, your baseball days or basketball days or hockey, volleyball, whatever your sport is, it's not over,
Mhm.
right? You just need to be aware, right? You need to address it. You need to bring awareness to it because it could ultimately not just end your sports career, but it could ultimately end your life. And
Exactly.
we're seeing that in 76 plus student athletes every single year, and that's mind blowing. We're losing that many youth to something that is potentially preventable. Obviously there's some things that we may not know about that we just can't unfold, but a lot of this we can recognize earlier and bring awareness to it and ultimately prevent that. So my next question, right, is for parents that are sending their kids, right, they're sending their kids cross country, hours and hours away to college, right? It's a happy sad time. These kids get on college, right? What should parents be concerned about? What should parents potentially do before they send their kids off? Are there any
Wow.
additional preventative measures outside of just the standard physical? What do we talk about there?
Right. And again, great question. I mean, you hitting all the key points, and I didn't show the back end of that last document, but they actually talk about kind of sports cardiology, and I won't say controversies, but just questions that still remain. That was probably, if not number one, in the top three. Like as a parent, And let's say you have this family history, but your child has not had any event, or let's say you don't know. The approach is similar, right? It is letting your child know, hey, look, these are the things that you need to do. So education, right? The next step and it's the same process whenever I do community engagement. It starts with education, then it starts with engagement, right? Programs like this, like I think, again, hopefully, you'll let me run this because I think what we're talking about is something that I can play for parents, families, coaches, to understand how important it is to set up a structure, to set up a mechanism for parents to actually let you know. I think one of the key things is parents' fear. And I'll say this because I think I told you I was a Division 1 athlete. Again, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. No, I got to put that in there. But so was my daughter, right? And as a parent, and we're in that recruiting sphere, and you have to nowadays you got to be careful what they post. Don't post when you sprained your ankle and it got huge, or don't post when don't post that. But and so you got to do that as a parent. But if you pass out, if you have chest pain, if you are seeing a cardiologist, don't let that, don't hide those things when you go forward.
That's
And
it.
so again, so we go from education, we go to empowerment, we go to engagement, and now we go to empowerment. So empowering means that, well, now that you have that information, put it somewhere, right? Because I can tell you that even as an adult, I remember, a medication or a vitamin I take, but if the doctor gives you a report, take a picture of it on your phone, save it to your gallery. And so that when you go and you see the sports doctor, I can tell you when I went to the University of Kansas, I won't tell you how long ago it was, but uh, when we got there, we met with the doc, right? And he asked us, do you have this? He ran through the list of things, and it was no, 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 no. But at the end of the day, I was just so happy to be away from. I'm originally from North Carolina, to be from North Carolina in Kansas. I couldn't remember a thing, right? But kind of staying empowered to use that information to your benefit. Now, when you get on campus, right? And so when the parents get there, and again, my parents didn't have the privilege of coming to visit, but ask the coach, do you all have, you ready, an emergency action plan? And I don't think that should stop at the NC2A level. It should be at the high school level. And in many cases, given the degree of kind of expansive nature of middle school, we should have it there, right?
No,
And
that's
most schools
100%. Yeah.
already have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy
One.
because the sport, right? There's a lot of controversy around football as a whole, right? With health issues, CTE, and all the additional things that are starting to come out of the physicality of the sport.
Hmm.
It's ultimately just heightening the sport, right? It's
Right.
making people want it even more, and that's just how we work as humans, I guess. But the sport's becoming that much more popular, and it's growing to not just you know Friday night lights and balling out at high school. Now there's a whole off season dedicated, which is what we're talking about right now, right? With 7-on-7. So shout out to Championship 77 True Exposure. I got to do my due diligence here, right? But the sport of 7-on-7 has grown significantly, and like we talked about earlier in the show, we're seeing hundreds and potentially thousands of kids every single weekend in different cities, and these kids are playing hard. I mean, they're going hard every single play, and to have an emergency plan, right? Like you said, it shouldn't just stop at the college level because that's important. But these kids are playing football before college, right? They're playing football at high schools, and now kids are transferring and committing to certain high schools, and high school is almost college these days when it comes to the sport, right?
Hmm.
So then you take it a step
Exactly.
further and you go middle school. Middle school is starting to blow up. Like middle school is now starting to have full
Right.
blown padded team football. It's mind blowing. That was never a thing when I was younger. And then we've got the growth of 7-on-7, which is the entire off season, which then rolls into football camp season, which then rolls into Friday night lights. So it's a year
Right.
round commitment. So it's a real deal to have some form of emergency plan. And colleges, that's great, but high schools, we've got to get you on board. Other sports, we got to get you on board.
Hmm.
It's not just adults that are losing lives through heart disease. These
Exactly.
students, they're playing hard and they're losing their lives too. So that's why we're having this conversation. I'm gonna take a little drink. I'm gonna let you pick up, start conversation about something else if you like, but I'm gonna have a beverage before I get a little
No, go
raspy and
ahead.
choked up.
No, no, go ahead. No, and you said it right. Having that action plan doesn't mean you got to stop what you're doing. You just need to know where to go. So, for instance, the reason why now what we know, right? So, let's think about that video again. The girl passes out, right? So, number one, someone in the crowd knew to respond very quickly. The first thing they said was call 911. The
Yep.
next thing they did was they initiated CPR, and then the next thing that they did was they got the AED. You know what we call that? That's what we call BLS or basic life support. And that is probably the single most effective way to save a life. And so if you go, so again, I think our team is practiced, but if we go to a field or we go to a tournament, or and again, I love the tournament that we were in Houston. It was great, super environment. But I was able to clearly see where kind of the health folks were, and I know that they were floating around. Now, the one thing that I'm remiss about is I know that I have an AED and available, but that's something that as a coach, as a parent, not so much as a player at that age, but even as players start to get better. Okay, where is the AED if something happens and I need to, heck, probably the fastest people out there are the players, so they can go and grab it and bring it back. So knowing where those things are going to be important, right? And then doing a personal inventory every day, right? When you wake up and you eat that breakfast and you get out there, just make sure things feel right. It's the same thing. I think in football, and we won't. I didn't want to hop into the COVID space yet because I know that's one of those ones that we could be on here a whole another hour. My wife might throw something at me, but that's a
Mine too.
space where now, yeah, where we're starting to appreciate and understand that even these subtle changes, right, where you come back, you take your period of kind of recovery post COVID, but now we're starting to see that again, if you rush back too early. So that's the other thing. Like when you do have some significant event, let the workup finish. Right, football will still be there when you get back, and that way you can attack it much more aggressively and not have to be worried about what that next step is going to be.
That's big time. So look, we're gonna run this thing back. We're gonna continue this relationship, man. I'm super excited. I am incredibly honored to have met you and to have connected with you. The wealth of knowledge that you shared tonight was second to none. And for the folks that stuck around during the technical difficulties, I appreciate that. But I know the replay will get viewed over and over again. And this is something I'm going to take screenshots from, man. I'm going to take screenshots, well, screen recordings. I'm going to blast segments out on social media. I'm going to put it all over my 39 Hearts Facebook page because it's really important. And these are the exact answers that I have been seeking for the last year and a half when I started this whole Spotlight 39 media platform, in trying to find ways to give back. So we've done one Heart Walk. It was at the University of Maine. I'm looking forward to connecting with other athletic directors and coaches around the country because ultimately I want to bring the 39 Hearts nonprofit Heart Walk community event to any and every high school around the country. So coaches, parents, I don't care who you are, if you're connected with a school, by all means reach out. It's a small school in a rural area. It's a public school, with a bad rep. I don't care where it's at. You could put me, in South Central. You could put me in New York City. You could put me in the Hamptons. I don't care. You put me in front of people. Let me share this story. Let's help, the world raise some more awareness for heart disease within student athletes. You come calling and I'm going to be there. We're going to bring the 39 Hearts walk to your football field. We're going to do 3.9 laps around the field because that's incredibly symbolic, obviously, right? So once we complete that, we want to get the community involved. We want to bring in local food trucks and local vendors to support, community outreach. We want to have a bounce house or face painting or activities for the kids so they have something to do. We don't want to just come and walk, 3.9 laps, shake some hands, share some stories, and walk away. We want to make this as impactful as possible. We want to bring in the community. And then all at the same time, while we're doing this and we host these walks at different high schools, we want these kids that are participating in the walks to be able to fundraise online. And as they fundraise, as we reach certain tiers of donations, we're then going to give over 50% of that back in scholarships to the student athletes or students in general. They don't even have to play sports. If they participate in the walk, they're going to be eligible for these scholarships. We've got the All-American Cleat Drive Round 2, right? Second year. Look for that. That's coming in a couple of weeks. We're going to run that pretty much all April through July. So we gave about 12 pairs away last year. I want to double that. I want to double down, man. I want to go 24, 25 plus pairs of cleats across the country. I don't care where you're at, man. If you're in need, I want to be able to help you out through the 39 Hearts nonprofit. So that's what I've got, man. I want to say coach, but I'm going to say doc, man, because doc just sounds super cool, and that's what you are. So, doc, any last closing remarks before we close this thing out? The way I do every single time, and that's with the 39 Hearts and leveraging the power of sports to raise awareness for heart disease within student athletes.
Well, again, let me first say thank you, thank you, thank you. And you said you were looking for somebody, like me to speak to it. Just your energy, your passion, the message. Like I said, when I read through the things that you all are doing, the vision that you have for the program and the overall mission, I mean, I want to be a part. I mean, do you have I guess I won't say, ambassadors. I'll be a Texas ambassador. I mean, I don't even know,
Look,
but
man,
I am
I'm a
so
one-man
happy,
band, and
Kaden.
I am welcoming any and everybody who wants to be a part of what I've got going on. Because if you want to do it for the right reasons, I want you to be a part of what I got going on. Because ultimately, it's not about me. It's about the kids. It's about raising awareness. It's about giving back in my man's name to help, give the exposure, right? We're on TruXposur Live. We talked about the kids at the beginning of the show. We gave them the exposure, but then we got to do something that I've been dying to do, and that's to talk about the foundation and really dig deep into the why. And then here we are. So I would love, love, love to have you as an ambassador, as a partner, as a spokesperson. We can call you whatever you want to be called. I'm just going to call you Doc, and I'm going to call you my friend because I'm honored to have met you, and I'm excited to continue this relationship and have you on throughout my journey so we can continue to raise awareness, and hopefully we can link up and find a high school or multiple high schools or even a high school district. We can involve a whole district. I don't care. The more the merrier. I want to come to San Antonio. I want to bring 39 Hearts. Let's do it.
There we go. All right. Well, you said it. You've thrown down the gauntlet. We're gonna cross that Rubicon. But in closing, and this is it. And I'm gonna stop because we could talk all night. Like I told you, my wife left because she know we'd be talking football and hearts, two things that I love. So, but I'd be remiss if I say, people say, well, how do we do it? How do we engage and educate? Well, I asked everybody. I said, did you take your meds? So I'm a lifestyle medicine physician, and I know that sounds crazy and kooky, and we didn't talk about this. We can save this for another discussion. I know you say, well, meds. MEDSSS. So the first M is mind body wellness, having a place where you can go to learn to relax. E, exercise, right? So you got to get that in. We're talking about football players, but understanding how to navigate that and leverage that is important. D, diet. Now I'm plant based. I'm not forcing everybody to be plant based or plant focused, but look at your diet and nutrition and how that can help. S, get rid of those risky substances. We talked about, again, vaping. We talked about energy drinks. Make sure you monitor those. The next S, sleep. Get enough sleep. There's no way your body can heal and repair if you don't get that sleep. And the last S, and this is what my friend and I are going to start building, is social connectedness. So at the end of the day, when you look at lifestyle medicine and you look at how do I get better? How do I perform? Did you take your meds? That's it. I'm going to stop because we'll keep going.
I appreciate it, man. So look, I'm gonna close this thing out. I'm gonna thank you again, and I'm gonna do it the right way, man. I haven't done this in a little while due to some differences, but tonight's special. I'm gonna break the rules, man. I'm gonna call him out by name. I miss you, big homie. Darius Minor, you are the reason why I do what I do. Shout out to you. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, Doc. So here it is. He is the reason, Mr. Darius Minor. We miss you, man.